Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dustin and Blaze out here, Family Tree Investing. Gonna be making a video this week on when you should refinance your house or rental property. We just recently wrapped up a refi on our owner-occupied duplex, so I want to give you the exact numbers that we looked at when evaluating whether or not that was right for us, and then just give you some rules of thumb and numbers that you can run if you're looking to do this on your house or an investment property. So with that, we'll get to it. We'll talk to you soon. So the first thing you want to do when considering whether a refinance is right for you or not is to do a quick break-even analysis. So this is just comparing the cost of doing that refinance versus the amount you'll be saving as a result of lowering your interest rate, and comparing those two and figuring out how long it will take you to break even if you do that refi. And one thing you can do to know whether to even start doing this calculation is figuring out if the interest rate that you'll be getting is at least 0.75 to 1% less than you're paying currently. Because if it's less than that, if you're down only in like a 0.25% or something like that, it's usually that break even that the math you'll do is not going to be too favorable. I'll give you an example right now. So I had a 1.375 interest rate reduction, and that made my interest savings for the year. Oh, Blaze looking to get up on here. Great, come on, bud. Not the easiest to film with the German Shepherd. Okay, I guess we'll be getting on this walk again. All right, guys, take two this time. The outdoor scene really didn't work out too well with especially walking Blaze. But hey, this is actually a little cleaner anyway. So you can see right behind me here, I've got two examples of what a good refinance would be versus what a bad refinance would be. And I actually use the real numbers from our recent refinance to show you the good. But first, the bad. You can see that in this scenario, I'm estimating like a 0.5% interest rate reduction. And these are how the numbers work out. Let's say I had an original loan for $180,000. That was at 4.625% interest, which means that I'm paying $8,265 a year in interest. If I want to go refinance that, maybe I get a 4.125% interest rate. Sounds pretty good. It's a reduction. That's going to lower my interest payments down to $7,367 for a savings of $898. Pretty good. Who wouldn't want to save $900 a year in interest? Well, to do this break even though, to see if it's worth it, you're going to take that and compare it against your closing costs, how much you're going to spend on closing costs, and figure out how many months or how many years almost might it take you to recoup those costs or break even. In this case, you can see I saved $898. Cost to refi in my case was about $1,700. That's going to take me almost 23 months, almost 2 years to recoup that cost. In my opinion, that's not something I'd be super excited about. We still might look at that, but generally that wouldn't have sold us on pursuing that. A good refinance is what we actually wound up with, and that goes like this. So that's a 1.375% interest rate reduction, went all the way down to 3.25% for a total annual interest that we'd be paying of $5,797. So you can see, again, doing that quick math, we're saving $2,468 in interest, same closing cost of $1,700, and now we get to recoup that in just over 8 months. And I think that's right in line with what we're looking for here. So to me, that is 2 examples how you could run this break-even analysis. Maybe that gives you a better idea of what looks good and maybe what's not so good. Now, some of you might be thinking, hey, well, what if I don't wait a year to refinance? What if I refinance 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Even if I get a better interest rate, won't I still be paying more in the time I own the home, because now I'm going to be resetting the payment period? In other words, if you got a 30-year loan, you're 10 years into the loan, you've only got 20 years left to pay it off, been paying interest and principal that whole time, and now you go to refinance, maybe at a lower rate, but now you reset and are now going to be paying over a new 30-year period. The answer is yes, of course you're going to be paying more in interest, but you can also do that math. And spoiler alert, the lower your interest rate, the same math we're doing right here, the better your chances of not paying as much over that length of the loan and maybe still coming out ahead if you refinance early on. So let me show you this. All right, so that same scenario, I'm just giving you an example, that same bad scenario over on this side, that total loan, if we hadn't touched it, that 4.625%, we would have paid $153,000 in interest over that entire 30 years had we not touched that. If we refied after the first year of owning that and got only a 0.5% reduction, you can see that after refining 1 year, we now have a new lower balance. That total interest actually does go down $140,000, which saves you over $13,000. Even if you reset that loan, even though you paid interest, this 140,203, the math I did includes paying a whole year of interest at that first year of that higher interest rate. And then you factor in all the interest you pay for the next 30 years at the new lower interest rate, and you still come out ahead. But check this out. As soon as you do this after 5 years, if you refinance after 5 years, you've now lowered your principal down quite a bit, but you're going to be paying more because you pay interest at that higher interest rate for 5 years, and then you reset the clock and go back and pay another 30 years at that slightly reduced interest rate. And at the end of the day, at the end of that new 30 years, you're going to be coming out behind, right? Almost $9,000 extra. What I wanted to show by this though is that if you get a better interest rate, like I'm talking about here, if you make sure to not refinance until you get a really solid interest rate, you can still come out ahead of where you would be at, even if you refinance 5 years into the new loan. So that's the scenario I played out here. If you go from 4.625 to that 3.25 like we did, after the first year, we know that we're going to be saving close to $45,000. Even if we would have refinanced 5 years from now and got this same rate, we would have still come out ahead almost $20,000. Now, obviously, there probably is a point in time where we come out behind. If you refinance at the 20th or 25th year. But this is just to show again and reiterate that you really want to target as big of interest rate savings as possible. Don't try not to settle just for that marginal gain, because I think you have to look at it both in the short term and in the long term. All right, so the last thing we have to talk about is a cash out refinance. So everything we just mentioned here, doing a break-even analysis, checking for how much interest you're going to be saving, comparing that to the closing cost, that doesn't go completely out the window. You still want to know things like closing costs and what your new interest rate will be, but that is not the primary motivation in a cash out refinance. What you're doing with a cash out refinance is trying to pull equity out of a property. When we looked at this, we did it solely for the purpose of knowing that we could take that money and put it into a new house, a new rental property. Other people do it, and you can do it to do renovations, things like that also. And the way folks do this is with a cash out refinance. So let's say you have a property worth $120,000. Maybe you owe $60,000. By the way, I'm not making these numbers up. This is an actual property that we have, that we looked at doing this. Single family house, it's worth $120,000. We owe $60,000 on it. Typically, banks on a single-family rental property will lend you 75% of the value of the home, which equals $90,000. In a cash-out refinance, you're going to take that $90,000 minus your existing loan balance. In our case, it's $60,000. We get a new loan for $90,000, and we take home the difference. We cash out the difference. In this case, $30,000. That's a check that we get written at closing for $30,000. Now again, it only makes sense if you can pull that money out, do it for a relatively inexpensive amount. You don't want to pay an arm and a leg in closing costs to be able to do this. And in our case, since it's a rental property, we want to know how that affects our monthly mortgage payment, right? Because the rent you bring in minus your mortgage payment is how much you're left over with. And for us, this particular house rents for about $1,000. Before we did all this, payment was about $500, so we were cash flowing about $500 a month. Now, after doing this refinance, it was going to be closer to $670 a month. So that right there would affect our cash flow and our ability to pay for maintenance, for capital expenditures, things like that. But it still left us enough room that we felt comfortable with, especially by the fact that we're now able to pull out $30,000 and go and get another single family house or duplex. So again, cash out refinance, you still want to know your interest rate, you still want to know closing costs, you know, run those numbers, making sure what your new payment's going to be compared to your old and how much you're actually able to pull out. Again, if we had to do this and we were only going to be able to pull out $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, probably not worth it. But we knew that what we could pull out equated to about the down payment on a new property. And so this made it really attractive in our case. Okay, so that does it for this week's video, guys. We talked about a regular refinance, what numbers to run, both in the short-term savings and in the long-term savings. And then that third topic was around cash out refinancing. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them below in the comments. Otherwise, have a great day. Please like and subscribe so I know you like my content here, and we'll talk to you soon.